The Philippines is one of only 2 countries in the world where divorce is illegal. The only other is Vatican City, and with a population of under 1,000 made up of mostly nuns and priests, divorce isn't in very high demand. But in the Philippines, a country with more than 40,000 married couples, more than half the population supports legalizing the practice. And as a legalization bill makes its way through the courts, will Filipinos in unhappy marriages finally get the chance to move on? Hi guys, I'm Alex. This is Now This World, and on this episode we're looking at how the Philippines became one of the last countries in the world with a ban on divorce, and how that affects its people. First, a little background. Divorce technically isn't illegal for everyone. For the approximately 5% of the population who identify as Muslim in the overwhelmingly Catholic state, divorce is allowed. That's because Muslim Filipinos adhere to a separate legal system called Code of Personal Muslim Laws. And the process hasn't always been illegal, even for non-Muslims. During decades of Spanish colonization from the 15th to 19th centuries, the practice was all but banned in the Philippines. But under the US and Japanese occupations in the early 1900s, divorce was legalized, within certain limitations. A few years after the country gained independence from the US, the Civil Code of the Philippines banned it again in 1950.
The Catholic Church once more reasserted itself in Philippine politics.
That's attorney Evelyn Ursua. She wrote the original divorce bill that's been adapted into the current proposal moving through the courts. She says the Catholic Church wields a significant influence over the state.
The Catholic line is marriage is sacred and those who are married should stay together forever. But we are a secular society. There is, under our constitution, there's separation of church and state. So the Catholic Church should not impose its own precepts, its morals on everyone.
And today, there are only a few ways for Filipino couples to separate, and none of them are quick or easy fixes. The first option is annulment. It's expensive, lengthy, and requires couples to meet very strict legal guidelines. People seeking an annulment have to meet certain requirements that include impotence, undisclosed STDs, lack of parental consent, and a few others. But domestic violence, physical or verbal abuse, irreconcilable differences? According to Article 45 of the Family Code of the Philippines, those don't meet the standards for an annulment. Under a legal separation, couples can live separately and divide their possessions, but the agreement doesn't legally end a marriage, and therefore doesn't allow either party to remarry. Grounds for filing a legal separation include physical abuse and infidelity, among others. To declare a marriage null and void, the couple must prove that a valid marriage never legally existed, that it was considered invalid from the beginning. The most common route attorneys take to prove a marriage null and void is by proving that either one or both parties has a psychological incapacity to fulfill marital duties. That usually involves a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist who has to perform a mental evaluation and produce a report with the results. And attorney Ursua says that's enough to keep many couples from moving forward with a separation.
I've had clients who refused to be declared psychologically incapacitated, especially if they knew that they worked hard to make the marriage work.
Aside from the many years it can take to overcome these obstacles, legal proceedings can also cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and there's still no guarantee that the courts will rule in favor of separation. People who have no money to pay for the services of a lawyer are usually stuck in their marriage. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, about 1 in 5 Filipinos experience poverty. The average annulment starts at around 250,000 Philippine pesos, or approximately $4,800 US. That's hardly less than the average family income in the Philippines for an entire year, which is about $5,000 US. This huge cost fosters a breeding ground for scammers, who pose as lawyers offering lower rates and guarantees of favorable rulings. These prices also lead many people to simply abandon their marriages. But for some women, abandoning their marriage isn't an option. 1 in 7 married women in the Philippines say they've been physically abused by their husbands, and 8% say they've been sexually abused by their husbands. Many end up stuck out of fear of retaliation or financial despair. And that leads us to a very important point: how these strict marriage terminations rules disproportionately affect women. Women may make up half the country's population, but only 46% of them are working, compared to 76% of men. That means that many women rely on their husbands for financial support. That, coupled with the pervasive social stigma surrounding ending a marriage, which is particularly strong for women who are expected to hold the family together, makes it not only logistically difficult to seek an annulment or legal separation, but financially and emotionally challenging as well. We spoke to one Filipino woman who says she felt pressured into getting married, and now she's working with a lawyer to figure out the best way for her to move on from her marriage.
I got married at 19. At that age, you're not matured enough to make wise decisions for yourself. The question that was given to me was not, do you want to get married? Are you ready to get married? But rather, why don't you get married at this date? So at that point, I could not say no.
The lower house recently passed the bill, passing the baton to the more conservative Senate, who must pass a counterpart divorce bill. Then it would head to President Duterte's desk, who could veto it altogether. Duterte has previously expressed opposition to the bill, despite having his own marriage annulled before entering office. But Speaker Alvarez, an ally of the president, says he's optimistic that he can convince Duterte to sign off on what he calls the dissolution of marriage. Alvarez thinks it's time for the Philippines to catch up to the rest of the world.
It's a badge of stupidity. Kasi tayo na nga lang yung naiiwan na bansa na hindi pa nakakakita sa problema.
The proposed divorce legislation would make it easier for low-income people to get free legal representation and loosen the grounds for seeking separation in the first place.
If I were to get a divorce, it would mean a lot to me because it means freedom for me. I don't have to use his name. And also for my ex, he can marry his partner. Sometimes you just want to be in love again. You want to be with a person who truly cares for you and respects you.
So, what do you think? Should the Philippines make divorce a legal right for couples, or should they defer to the Catholic Church's influence? Let us know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching Now This World, and please don't forget to like and subscribe.